Wiring a battery in parallel is an easy way to increase the amp hours for your setup. For example, if you connect two of our 12-volt, 135 amp hour batteries in parallel, you will create one battery that has 12 volts and 270 amp hours. Connecting three 12-volt batteries will get you 405 amp hours, and so on and so forth. Remember to only wire together batteries that have matching chemistry, voltage, and amp hour ratings. Never mix and match when wiring batteries together. Here's how to wire your batteries in parallel to get that higher amp hour rating. To start, you will need the batteries that you want to connect, the correct gauge wire, we're using a gauge 6 wire here, appropriately sized fuses, and a wrench. If you need help figuring out what gauge wire or fuse sizes to use, please check out our videos on those topics. Before connecting each battery in parallel, charge each battery individually. This is called balancing the batteries and ensures that they are all the same starting voltage and capacity when being wired together. To wire the batteries together, remove the terminal bolts from each battery and set them aside. Our Dakota Lithium parallel wiring kits come with these 150 amp fuse blocks that are installed directly on the positive terminal. If you are using a standard fuse, install it as close to the positive terminal as possible. Install the fuse block and replace the terminal bolt. Connect one end of a red cable to the fuse block. Install a second fuse block on battery 2. Attach the cable coming from battery 1 to the fuse block on battery 2. If you plan on using more than 2 batteries, add another cable on top of this fuse block. Otherwise, you can skip ahead to connecting the negative terminals. To add another cable, the order of connections for battery 2 will be terminal block, the cable coming from battery 1, and the cable going to battery 3, and the fuse block bolt. Install the fuse block on battery 3. Reinstall the terminal bolt, and then connect the cable attached to battery 2 and connect the fuse block on battery 3. Continue this pattern for however many batteries you want to wire together. Once you get to the final battery, connect one last red cable to the final fuse block. The open end of this cable will be the positive connection to your devices. To connect the negative cables, we'll start on the opposite end of the battery bank from the first positive connection. Since we started the positive connection on battery 1, we'll start the negative connection on battery 3. Alternating the connections this way optimizes an even current distribution. Attach a black cable to the negative terminal on battery 3 or the last battery in your battery bank. Replace the terminal bolt, and then take this black cable and connect it to the next battery's negative terminal, adding another black cable before installing the terminal bolt. Continue this pattern until you get to the last battery in your bank. Add one last black cable on the final negative terminal, like we did with the positive terminals. This should leave you with an open positive connection coming off of battery 3 or the last battery in your bank. It will also leave you with a negative connection coming off of battery 1. Before moving forward, take your wrench and tighten the bolts to the recommended torque. The recommended torque may be found on the battery's product page. For these 135 amp hour batteries, the recommended torque is 10 foot-pounds. Make sure each terminal bolt and fuse bolts are properly torqued. Now you are ready to connect your devices. Again, use the open positive connection on one end and the open negative connection on the other.